What a glorious day this is, hobnobbing with three people I admire under cheerful TV lights on a little stage that mirrors the great stage of the world. It's a playground for the mind and spirit, as you'll see, courtesy of our friends at the County Office of Education. Now it's time to have some fun. Let's start by welcoming my poetic playmates. Chris Barron is a longtime friend, a college professor, a well-known writer, and former manager of the annual Border Voices Poetry Fair. His fellow poets are Mia Castle, who is our guest artist today, because Hannah Gruen, who was a third place winner, mysteriously was sent off to Mars or something. Actually, she just couldn't make it. And our other guest is Nikki Evans, the fourth place upper division winner in our annual poetry contest. So we're going to start our reading with a poem by Nikki. Before we do, I'd like to suggest a little game. In reading the poems for today's shows, including yours, Mia, our guest artist, I noticed that there was a lot of similarity and also an equally remarkable difference in the stance or the viewpoint with which they looked at the world. So at the end of this, we're gonna look at that, and we're gonna figure out just how various poets are able to open such very different windows on the world, especially with Mia's poem, as you'll see. And after that brief introduction, let us take a look at a really remarkable bit of happy fantasy from Nikki, or Natalia, right?
Yeah.
But Nikki is her preferred name.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Okay. A kingdom of my own. I spread my arms out wide, the wind billowing my hair behind me. I reach around to pull it back to my shoulders. Wind, cease, I say, and it stops immediately, because in this world I am the ruler. A castle looms in the mist, and I float down to its highest tower, feeling the cold stone beneath my feet. My stomach squeezes inside me, and I imagine myself into a dining room, with a feast spread across the long table. Bread, cheese, soups galore. I pick a small slice of cheddar on sourdough, then imagine myself in front of a door, a purple door, a certain door that leaves my realm. I reach out and grab the doorknob and pull it open. I know I have to get back to the real world, where I am not in charge, where there are people above me. I take a breath and plunge myself into the maze of darkness that awaits.
Neat. Especially neat for me because I think I found someone who has the same fondness as I had at your age for science fiction and fantasy. You know, I mean, I used to go to the library or an area I lived in Torrance, Palos Verdes area. It was right on the ocean, and the waves came in, and you could listen to the ocean while you read about robots and castles and stuff. It was really great. Well, first tell me that you do have a fondness for that sort of thing, I hope.
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
And why do you love it? What is it you like about it?
I guess it's just being able to use my imagination a lot.
Yes.
It gives me the ability to use my own creations instead of doing just what people tell me to do. I can go out of the box and think my own things.
But when you're reading somebody else's fantasy, you're thinking their things, but then you create your own, is what obviously as you did with this.
Yeah, because like when I read books, I imagine myself in the adventures instead of just reading it. I actually incorporate myself into it.
Well, as you did in your poem.
Yeah.
Really. That is neat. So, how did you craft this little fairy tale? I mean, was it come from a prompt from your teacher, or is it something? Did the poet teacher give you something to start you, or what?
I just mostly remember that I was thinking of a story I was writing at the time, and a dream that I had, and I just kind of put them together into a poem, like the shape of a poem. But
it was a dream of dancing, and what was it? A cat. How did the poem go? It was into another world, right?
Yeah.
And that was the dream you had?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you write stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one thing I really loved about was this sense of hero, or heroine, in the story, kind of creating this world. This is my world. Wind cease. It's fantastic. But I have to say my favorite part of the poem is the purple door. I love the purple door because to me, and it's not because I love a purple door or anything, but I think in the image in the poem kind of talks about this permanent entryway into this realm that the narrator's created, that you've created, and it marks the line. It's not just a door, it's not a dark door, it's the purple door, it's still yours as you go through, and I really like that part.
Thank you.
You can always tell a lot about a person, your reader, in this case Chris Barron, by what it is they like about what you write. File that away. One thing I like to say is that, that a lot of discoveries are made at the tip of a pen, my pen, or other people's pen. In other words, the act of writing is an act of meditation where you learn stuff as you write. Did you find yourself learning anything in this poem as you wrote this poem?
The only thing that I learned is that I think that I figured out my favorite color is purple. That's pretty much it.
That's important.
Yes, that's very important.
That is important. Now, how come you're not wearing? Oh, you are. You are wearing a purple thing. Well, why is that important to you? The color?
I guess to me it's important to know what your favorite color is. 'Cause when people ask that question to other people, when they ask what's your favorite color, I usually prefer that somebody actually answers the question instead of, oh, I like them all, or something like that. It's like a little pet peeve of mine.
You put another piece in the puzzle of your personality for yourself. I mean, you learn something about yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's neat. What did you think of the poem?
I thought it was good. It was like, I like it how you go into a different world and, you get out. You can get out, I guess, but you have to face the real world. So, I thought it was interesting.
Speaking of other worlds, we get to your poem.
Yeah.
But you're our guest artist.
Mm-hmm.
And I read your poem, obviously, when I put this anthology together, but I just read it pretty thoroughly. And I was surprised, astonished, amazed, and actually delighted when I learned the explanation for why you wrote this. So I won't say any more at this point. Just go ahead and read the poem.
Okay. Ragdoll. My infected life is full of diseases that engage morsels of tears that travel through empty tunnels in which there is no freedom. Emotions seep through my mask, which holds all pain, mutes me from passing strong proof that I am inflamed with rubbish. Nightmares silence my nimble tears, rooting me emotionless like a rag doll. As I inhale the rain, the sky inherits my flame. The harm I have received lingers, misleading me to mirror my past. Miracles never come my way, misery persuades it past me. My false life flies with the petals of flame.
No, I gotta admit that I was pretty depressed after reading that poem.
Yeah,
You
I know.
too?
It's rough.
You too?
It's rough.
It's a rough poem. It's a rough poem. Tell us how you wrote it.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Saymont, our poet teacher, actually had us get dictionaries, and so what we did, we just opened it, and we did that thing where close your eyes, poke at one of the words, and it landed on infected, disease, engage, and yeah, I know, and yeah, I just started thinking, I don't know, sad stuff, so I just wrote it all down, and then when I looked at it, it's really sad.
Yeah, I'm so relieved.
Yeah, I know. It wasn't from any past experience or anything, so.
But I'm going to go ahead and ask you this question anyway that I usually, at least it's my question today, the shows I've been doing today, is did you learn anything from writing or during the process of writing this poem, either before or afterwards? I already heard one thing you learned, I think, but go ahead and tell me how you put it.
I was in 6th grade, so I didn't know a lot of words, so I learned what morsels mean, sort of. I don't remember what it means now, but I remember I learned then because, dictionary. So, morsels, what's the other word? Inflamed, yeah.
You learned something else, and you just said it.
Feeling sad, I guess, and...
Sort of. What you said was that after you wrote it, you learned what a portrait of sadness looks like. I mean, you didn't say it quite that way, but that's what you said.
Yeah.
If you were to do a portrait of sadness again, would you do it the same way?
No, I think I'd do it like with a different style, like maybe, I don't know, Lost Puppy, something.
Lost Puppy's a good one.
Yeah, something.
Something
cuter.
you're more engaged in. Because this
Yeah.
isn't, right? I mean, this wasn't from your life. It was more like a game, right?
Yeah, it's just something sort of like assignment, so it wasn't really related to me, but it just sort of flowed when I picked those words.
Yeah, so see, you learned a lot. You learned what you want to write, and you learned a bunch of words, and you learned how to play games with words. Oh, that's pretty good. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it really speaks to me about, poetry as exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Something that you're not so connected to is this portrait of sadness, which I'm thankful for. And life has plenty of sadness in it, but to be able to understand it, and poetry can really serve that function. So the idea that you did this assignment, this exercise where the poet teacher found words you never really used before, put them together in such a way to relate to a human experience that you have, or just that you understand or that you imagine really is powerful.
Yeah.
It is.
And I think it's interesting now if you write the poem about the lost puppy, for example.
I want the puppy poem. Yeah.
It will be much more connected and much more grounded, and maybe more narrative even, and tell that story, and we'll feel it a bit more. Where in this we explore it with you.
Right.
This kind of
It was
portrait.
different.
Yeah.
What did you think?
I thought it was actually really good.
What did you like about it?
I liked the way that she used the words. I honestly wasn't expecting it to be so descriptive, but
yeah,
it was. I just thought it was amazing.
amazing.
How she put it all together. How you put it all together.
Did you find it an accurate portrait of someone, or?
No, but it reminds me of my friend because she thinks she's like that, but I've seen her happy, so.
She thinks she's like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know.
They think, oh, I'm depressed, but you're not. You're
Wears
not.
a lot of black and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, right. I know. Okay, our last pivot. You notice how I said that, pivot, because he's more than a pivot. I'm just playing with words. Is my good friend Chris Barron. Knowing him has been a great gift. He was an important figure in the early success of Border Voices because his kindness and insight enabled him as fair manager to assuage the mercurial fits of fate and temperament that always swirl around gatherings of artists. With this exception, we're doing okay. His poems have always been a gift to me. Some poets are extremely good at looking out at the world and then placing themselves at the center of it. The rain beats on the roof and it is singing a song to them. We, their admiring readers, dance to the melody. Think of T.S. Eliot. Other poets look out at the world and are aroused to pity and love. Their poems bind us to friends, neighbors, beloved parents, or ancestors. Think of Ezra Pound's wonderful poem, The River Merchant's Wife. Chris Barron's quietly loving and rhythmic poems place him among that latter group of poets. Here we go. It's Chris's turn.
Origins. Grandma sat us down at the long pine table, fed us spoonfuls of apple butter on dry white toast, the peppered latkes frying on the stove. With our feet dangling from the bench, she told us stories about her parents in the hills on the farm before America. I asked her if we were Americans, told her about the black girl in my class who shook her head and said she was African, even though she'd never been there. Grandma held us both by our cheeks and whispered, "We are all Americans now." I smiled. I asked her if I should tell my teacher I was Romanian, even though I'd never been. She put a hand on her back, bent over, and swung her arm up and down until the spatula scratched the ceiling and scuffed the floor. This is how we did it, cutting and stacking until the wheat was piled so high we almost drowned. She put a plate piled with latkes on the center of the table and poured us each a ginger ale. "Tell them," she said. "Tell them all."
Okay. I'm not sure how we're doing on time, so we'll launch into our discussion, I guess. there's another wonderful poem you have here about your son, which I'd love to hear, but I'm just not sure about that. Have we got time? We got time. Why don't you do the one about your son too?
The Park, for Asa. At almost 3, you love the park, when kids play beneath the pepper trees, swinging, climbing, sliding through the tunnel. Very brave of you, and a new development because you don't like the dark, since you figured out the strangest of dark places. We wait for Lorian, Joaquin, Jack, and others you call by name, and sometimes by color, my orange friend. It doesn't matter because they're your friends. There are no requirements. You try and share and often can't, except for moments of divine kindness when you give the card to the crying boy, your purple friend. He needs it.
Oh, that is so. He's 5 now, right?
He's 5.
He's 5. Now, I was talking at the very beginning of this show that the various poems that we're looking at today have they take a different position in the way they look at the world. And those positions have gotten an even increased variety by our guest artist's presence here. To put another, I'll give you a hint. It has to do with what and who they are looking at, right? What and who are you looking at? I mean, when I looked, as I've said before, when you look at a TV script, I always look at it through the eyes of the script writer, and it can be a very odd experience, I'll tell you, as you see them playing with things, playing with your mind. One of our poets belongs to the glorious school of Song of Myself. I sing myself and I dance myself, but with a difference. One belongs to the school of Homer's Iliad, or Ezra Pound's River Merchant's Wife, where you look out with love at other people. And of course, I think we know who I'm referring to here. It's so dang obvious. And then the third poet, it's really interesting because you're playing word games, right? You're playing word games, and that is sort of like a little dance you're doing, for yourself.
Yeah.
And yet it ends up being a dance for others too, which brings us to your poem. Your poem. What would you say her poem is? Is it Walt Whitman? Is it a dance just for herself, or is it a dance for others, or is it both? Your turn.
It's a good question.
Well, that's why I asked it.
Because I think it's got all of it.
Yes.
And you and I can debate this later, but
I don't need to
but
debate.
I
I'm
think
going
it's
right down the word I
think
want.
good.
I want.
I'm playing right into your hands, which I would say
You
that
are.
that this is it's right. It's about yourself. It's a dance. It's observation. It's self and others, and so I see all of it kind of coming together.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think? Before I say anything, what do you think about her poem?
I think it's like amazing that there's a fantasy world where almost herself and anybody can go into. So, and then, you can dance what kind of dance you want in your world, right? So, yeah.
And there's a sense there because I'm just thinking about how it's story and it's about self, but it's also invitational.
Yes.
I feel welcome there,
Yes.
and it makes me hungry when I read.
I mean, she's doing her dance for herself. I mean, it's her fantasy, and it's lovely, She's creating a world, and she's showing you how you walk through doors after door at the new fantasy worlds. Say hello to one, goodbye to another, which is the nature of every goodbye. But she's also, like any dancer, offering her dance to us. I mean, obviously, she's putting it on the page. So I see this both. I see it as Walt Whitman, song for herself, but also a bit of Ezra Pound's River Merchant's Wife, not to the degree of yours. I mean, yours is you're very good at expressing your love for others, especially your family, your grandma, your kids, and so on. Very moving, very good. In fact, most of the poems I've seen by you deal with your family and your ancestry and the exploration of your heritage, right?
Right.
And how has that exploration enriched your life? Your poetry, and how do you think it might have enriched your readers?
It's a good question. For me, identity plays such a big role. So it's kind of who am I? So these poems are kind of full of identity. You know, the poem about my son even is, who am I looking out at this group of kids and trying to understand new emotions. You know, when you get my age, you think you've got all the emotions down. Then you have children, you realize there's a whole bunch more. So, you know, for me, the poetry was a way to process emotions, understanding and looking out. But for the most part, looking at identity, looking out at the world. I went on a trip to Israel and to the West Bank, and I don't know how much you guys know about that, but that dealt very closely with heritage, and I needed to see it for myself. I needed to process it for myself, and poetry was the way I could do that. It was taking all that emotion and constructing thoughts through language and through story, but not all as a narrative or a journal, but to capture that power in those phrases, those images, those ideas, putting them together and letting those speak for me, you know, so.
Does that have any, I mean, you're talking about identity and heritage and the West Bank. I mean, does that reassessment and enriching of your sense of heritage have any effect on your political views?
Sure, it does. And I would
you need to
I'll round the corner with this response to enrich others maybe who read the poems. And my hope would be that rather than coming from a political place, I'm trying to come from my experience, from what I see, from what I felt, and not just to gush emotion, but to try and construct it through poetry rather than a blog or a Facebook post or something that can just lead into various debate. It's really about, this is what I felt, this is what I experienced.
I mean, what I would get politically from your poetry is a sense of acceptance of other cultures, you know. But I'm not sure that an inveterate enemy of Israel or Palestine, either one, would learn from that. I know people in my own life who learn nothing from empathy, from meeting good people or being, it doesn't work.
And at first I tried to have poetry with a message. I think I wrote that mostly for me. And I took the message away and just wrote it as I felt it, as I experienced it, as the language worked. And that had more impact, I think, for me and for readers.
Okay. By the way, I should make this little warning. I mean, actually, I've been timing it. But they put the crew, our crew, who's carrying on this voyage of poetic discovery, the camera people, put up a note that we have, I think, probably 6 minutes left or 7 minutes, something like that. So not a lot of time. We have to get in the Hannah Gruen poem, one of the students who won a prize. But I think we have time to follow up a little bit on this. By the way, what did you guys think of his poetry?
His?
Yeah, that guy right
Oh.
there. We're talking about his poem. Yeah.
I thought it was really good. It his poem, The Park, reminded me of my little brother's. My little brother turned 2 yesterday, and my other brother's going to be 4 in a month. So it just reminded me a lot of them because that's what they do at the park. They play and they're nice to the other kids. Surprisingly, you expect them to be selfish and take all the toys, but they share. It's cute.
Oh, I like the look on her face. She's sweet. You've got empathy, which is in your poems.
It sort of reminded me when I was little and when I had friends. I didn't remember their names actually. I'd remember that they were like maybe mean or if they had a purple shirt on, stuff like that. So yeah, it reminded me of when I was little.
My purple friend. Yeah, that's cute. I like that.
It's funny when they come to the park the next time they have different colors on. They don't know how to identify each other, but they come around.
Okay, I'm going to sort of summarize this last question because I want to get to Hannah's poem. How much time we got left, guys? We got just real quick. You've spent a lot of time on community-oriented stuff, helping the community with Border Voices, with the C.S. Lewis Foundation. It seems to indicate a deep love and faith in our human family for some dang reason. Which I do share, but it's a difficult thing sometimes. Why your hopefulness?
Why?
You have
I
1
have 30
minute.
seconds
30
to explain
seconds,
my
perhaps 30
hopefulness.
seconds. You got to be poetic.
I can say that, I think in some ways that redemption is all around us all the time for humanity.
Yeah.
And, whether you believe in God or whatever spiritual path you follow, we have a chance to redeem each other and be redeemed all the time, and to find our way, to look toward light, and we can choose it.
You may believe something I believe. You didn't quite say it the way I would say it. There was a guy named Cicero, as you know, the Roman lawyer from 2,000 years ago, who said that human society is not possible without a belief in providence. That is, a belief that there is something, God, the gods in his case, that guides and sustains us, really. And if you think about it, I mean, there's others who believe that, many, Plato, Pico, the founding fathers, whatever, Mother Teresa. It's true. I believe, I know there are angels around us. They guide us in our language. There's different ways of thinking about it. You don't have to believe in any one thing, but there are different ways of thinking about it. I think that's one of the things you believe in. You wouldn't do all this stuff if you didn't.
Yeah. And I think in some ways, as an adult, I'm trying to work back to how I felt when I was younger. And if we had time, I don't know if we do, to hear from you guys about it, but getting back to that kind of clarity of knowing, and as that gets convoluted as you get older. As you get older, we construct it more. But I think when we're younger, it's simpler.
Unfortunately, we've run out. I have to, no, not unfortunately, Hannah's poem. Okay, Hannah was our third place winner in the upper division, and I really, really liked your poem. We will not have time to discuss it much, but I want to read it. Grade 7, Rancho Santa Fe Middle School. The rain drips, and the title runs right into the poem. The rain drips off the wooden roof. Don't Stop Believing is playing on the radio through a blanket of water in my ear. I tilt my head back, looking at the sky with the darkness of a cave. Drops from trees splash down viciously, hitting the patio floor. I am twirling, my wet clothes clinging to my cold skin. I am dancing under the invisible light of the night sky. Walt Whitman or Ezra Pound?
Sounds like Whitman to me.
It's Whitman, yeah, it's Whitman. The Song of Myself,
Yeah.
Beautifully done.
Mm-hmm.
I was always going to do, I haven't done this for any of the other shows, so I'm going to do it now. First of all, I have money and checks and a stereophonic, all the stuff for your award here. There you are.
Thank you.
Lots of it. Okay. And the other thing, I really like your poems. Anyway, the other thing is that for the other shows I didn't mention that you can see our poems and our shows both at the ITV website, San Diego County Office of Education, and at bordervoices.com, where you can also order What the Song Hopes For, which is our new anthology full of wonderful and mysterious vaults of poetic wisdom and Bardic humor. Thank you. Thank you, guys.